For our first pearl knotting project, we're going to make a bracelet. And I have pre-made 3 bracelets. The first one is made with Swarovski pearls. These are iridescent green and they're 8 millimeters. The second one is made with Swarovski iridescent purple pearls that are 8 millimeter. And the third one is a combination of the two. And I made them thinking they could be worn perhaps with the mixed color pearls in the middle and the green on one side and the purple on the other. I was just playing around, and this gives you an idea of the possibilities. You can use all solid one color, you can do a pattern. Today I did think that I'd use 2 different colored Swarovski pearls. The colors that we'll be using are powder almond and crystal cream. I thought they looked really pretty together. The bracelets for my wrist took a total of 28 millimeter pearls. So I'm going to make a bracelet using the staggered pattern, the alternate pattern, using those 2 colors. I'm going to start with a 2 arm stretch length of beading thread. I'll run this thread through my thread wax, and again, this is optional. Load our needle. This is more thread than you really need, but as your knotted strands grow longer, you're going to want to make larger loops to slide them down into. You don't want too much, but it's always best to have enough thread, and you don't want to run out of thread. So we'll start with a generous amount. And we'll join these 2 ends of thread together, and I'm going to form. This is a little thicker thread. This is a size 30. I'm going to form a double knot. Now to begin, we're going to need a clasp on one end and a jump ring on the other for the clasp to connect to. So we're going to use this little finding. It's called a clamshell. Looks like a little clamshell. And we're going to want our knot inside this clamshell. So we're going to pull our needle and thread through from the inside. There's a little hole out. And that knot is held in there really well. But just for security reasons, I'm going to put a little dab of glue on that knot just to secure it a little bit better. Like that. I'm going to trim the tail of my thread. I'm going to close the clamshell onto itself. And if any thread still sticks out, just take your scissors and trim it. And I'm also going to take my round nose pliers and close up this loop on the stem of the clamshell so that my thread won't get stuck in it as we're knotting. Okay. So I'm going to pre-string, staggering my 2 colors. We'll start with this one. We'll go with the cream, back to the almond, until we get them all on. Okay, now that I have threaded on all the pearls, I think I'm going to start by using the handheld knotting tool. We'll get started with that. So above our first bead, we're going to form a loop and slide that pearl bead down through, take the awl on the knotting tool, pull it snug, take the tail up through the fork and gently slide that off. And that holds our pearl on nicely. If you're using a thinner beading thread, you can always repeat that step and make a double overhand knot. So now we have 2. Bring those down through, slide our awl up through that loop. Our tail goes through the fork and we're going to slip that knot off. We'll do it one more time. The knotted strand goes down through the loop, slide the loop onto the awl, snug that knot up through the fork and slide it off. Now I'm just going to keep repeating this until I have knotted between each pearl on the strand. Now I'm going to switch to tweezers, the tweezer technique. And as you'll recall from the video, the strand goes down through the loop, the tweezers come down and grab the thread that comes out of that top pearl, and then we just knot that right on top. At this point, again, I'll just keep going until I'm done. Okay, now we have finished our knotted strand, just about perfect for my wrist, as you can see. And you also can see we had plenty of thread. So at this point, the next step is to thread the clamshell on for the other end of the bracelet. And instead of going from the inside out, we're going to go from the outside in. We pull our thread through. And I'm going to ever so slightly open that clamshell up. We're going to form a triple overhand knot, and it's a little trickier. Well, when you're doing it between a clamshell like this. Oh, and the next step is, before we do that, I'm going to close that stem and form it into a loop so our thread won't get caught in there. So the whole strand goes down through the loop. Take my pliers down at the base and form. This is where it gets tricky because of the clamshell. We want our knot to be around the edges of the clamshell. We want it to be resting inside the clamshell. So we're going to guide our thread and we're going to repeat 2 more times. The strand goes down through. Be sure that the threads don't wrap around the outside of the clamshell. I'll do it one more time just to make sure that's good and secure in there. You also could slide a crimp tube on there and pinch that crimp tube around the thread so it would be inside the clamshell when you closed it, but we're not going to need to do that because this is nice and secure. Now I'm going to take a little drop of glue, glue that knot, close the clamshell. You can either do it with your fingers or use your pliers. And then we will snip that thread. Now all that's left to do is to add our lobster clasp on one end, and this lobster clasp comes with a little jump ring on it. It's always good to have 2 sets of pliers when you're opening a jump ring. I'm going to slide that through one of the loops of the clamshell on one end of the strand. I'm going to use a 6mm jump ring on this side. Close that. There you go. And then these are gold plated, all the findings I'm using here today. And there you have it. You could do a solid bracelet in one of these 2 colors on either side like I did with the purple and the green, or you could just make a solid of each, or just make one. There you go. We have one more project to go, and that will be a pair of earrings. So when we come back, we'll get started with that.